What's going on, guys? Rob here with Free Coffee, Calvin McChesney behind the edits today. I wanted to come on and make a little intro to this episode because it's a little bit different than what we've done in the past. This is actually a recording of an Instagram live that I did with Kyle Fisk. We discussed cryptos more specifically like Bitcoin and Ethereum. We discussed our thoughts on the market crashes potentially in 2021, 2022. Just an all-around economic discussion kind of hinged on the crypto and stock markets. So this is not going to be the typical audio quality that you've come to expect from the Free Coffee Podcast, but I think there's a lot of gems in here. So if you can get past maybe a little bit of shaky quality, I think you'll get a lot of value out of this. So we're planning on doing something like this once a week, a Sunday interview or a Saturday interview on live, to just kind of have more engaging conversations because people can come on and ask questions. So if you want to be there for the next one, these are on my personal Instagram, rob.reilly, R-E-I-L-L-Y. But yeah, without further ado, let's hop right into it. I hope you guys enjoy it and let us know what you think. Hit us up on Instagram. Thank you. What up, dude? There he is. What's going on, man?
What's up, Rob? Hey.
How are you?
Doing this. Whoa.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm excited.
It's a weird angle.
It's tough. I got my phone plugged in just so it doesn't die on me here. So we're making it work though.
Yeah, this works.
We got a couple people in here. We got a wave in the chat. Let's see. Oh, I can pop it up like that. Cool.
Calvin McChesney. Hey. Is there a way to zoom this out? Oh, there's.
I don't know. T Lover, what's up, Mom? What's going on, guys? So we're gonna try something new today. This is something I haven't done. What's going on, Melissa? This is something I don't think Kyle's done. Andy, happy birthday! Happy birthday, Andy. This is something we haven't done before, and today we're just gonna sit here on live. This is being recorded, but we figured me and Kyle always have conversations about the economy, about investing, and currently right now it's a little weird to try to do an interview in person at the moment. So I figured a sit-down discussion and just a chat about crypto over live would be fun. Kyle, you've been on the pod before, but never done this, right?
Nope, first time. So
Cool.
You're gonna be doing this through Coffe Pod though, right?
Yeah. So this is gonna be eventually. So this right now is being recorded. I'm gonna. But this is being recorded. This will end up on YouTube. This will end up on like the podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of those. Just as like a fun little discussion.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
Cool, man. So Bitcoin today, or just in general, a couple months ago, I want to say, you hit me up and you were starting to go really bullish on crypto. You were starting to go really bullish on like, yo, you should be investing, I'm investing, all that sort of stuff. Was that fresh to you this round? Like this time around, was this something that you discovered recently? Like, why were you so bullish on it? I mean, you hit me up around like 15K in the climb, I think is when you were hitting me up about it.
Around 13. Yeah.
13, but, yeah.
So like, why? Yeah, I mean, in the initial hype back in 2017, that's when I first was drawn to it. And during that time, I thought it was a bubble. We had the huge skyrocket up to 20,000 mark, and then it dropped back down to 3,000 by that like March after that year. But yeah, during that time, I was more so interested in the technology itself with blockchain and how that technology innovation could potentially lead to betterment for our future as a society. And just to give context around my investing thesis and like how I came to just investing in general is I tend to look at trying to solve problems from first principles theory, So essentially, whenever I'm making an investment of time or energy, whatever it may be in like business decisions, it's always coming from first like identifying what the problem is, and then looking at tools that are available or resources that are available in our society to solve those problems. So during that time, and granted I was doing BOHO HOBO at the time, and just understanding how our society is and identifying problems, I was like, oh wow, this is an opportunity to potentially solve these issues that we're having as a humanity.
And what issues does the blockchain solve, in your opinion?
So decentralization of information. So there's no centralized location. So no Facebook, no Google that takes ownership of everyone's data. So like we're having a wave of issues where people are waking up to the fact that Facebook is profiting off of our data ownership, and how this could lead to issues later on as far as them having power and control over us. So as far as like an individual freedom kind of thing, blockchain is very essential.
I agree.
Yep.
You know, I've said I actually, when I tweeted about this discussion that we were going to have, and when I made a little Insta story talking or announcing it, I said that I'm not a huge fan of Bitcoin, but I am a huge fan of the blockchain, and I am a huge fan of the technology. But in my opinion, I don't think that actually translates into an extremely high value of Bitcoin as an investment, let's say 40 years from now, 50 years from now. Now, I know you stand on one side where you believe it's going to continue to increase in value, and correct me if I'm wrong. And I stand on the other side where I say, look, like, I think right now it's just riding some hype. I think the blockchain will solve a lot of problems with like decentralization, but I don't think the technology is there yet, and I don't think Bitcoin is the vehicle that will take us there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I totally agree. So a part of this whole process too has just been understanding finance and economics and the movement of money and like what money actually is. So in terms of my investment thesis, and granted, there's going to be some like duality here. So like I just gave my perspective of where I was coming from back in 2017 to now in 2020, 2019 when I actually invested. And to be quite frank, I wasn't investing in the technology itself with the Bitcoin investment. It was more so seeing opportunity in it from a finance standpoint. And that's very different than like what I was just describing before. So I think that's important to note too, because that's it changes like the context around the investment thesis. And so just simply put, the reason why I invested in Bitcoin this year or this past year was because I saw that there's financial institution money pouring into it. And then that was raising eyes like, oh, wow, this is potentially going to be something where a lot of money is going to move into it, and there's opportunity to have ROI on that investment. So this is, for me, a short term. And by that, like in the next 10 to 15 years, and then I'll probably end up pulling out in like 2035.
Interesting.
But like also identifying the fact that in order to like make change, you obviously have to have capital in a capitalistic society. Like money is power, that kind of thing. So like I a part of me was kind of like falling for the greed in the sense of to be honest, like that you see opportunity that could make you a lot of money, and so like why not go for it? And if you put in only like 2 to 5% of your income into it, why not? Because you end up might be like winning out in the long run, in the short term, 10 to 15 time frame.
I've seen some pretty crazy stuff about how Bitcoin can be at, you know, $1 million per coin, or at, you know, let's even talk more short term, $100,000 or $200,000 per coin. And essentially the only problem I have with that is like what I stated earlier. I think right now and back in the day in like 2017, what you're seeing is people acknowledging the technology, people realizing it's extremely valuable, and institutional money going into it. But when people say like, look, if this replaces gold or if this matches gold, it's going to be X dollars, because the market cap of gold is what, 8 trillion, and the market cap of Bitcoin is 500 billion. So people say it's got this whole range to fill in. I think, one, I don't necessarily know if that's going to happen, but two, I think to say it'll replace gold so it will be X, or to say like it'll do this so it'll be X, when all these different institutions can choose any different coin that better serves their needs, that might transact faster, right? That might, they could build their own token on the Ethereum blockchain or something like that. I don't see how Bitcoin gets to and sustains a high level of value, especially with, as you know, it's deflationary, right? There's less and less of it being made constantly with every halving. Eventually, there will just be no more coming out. So then it has to be used for the technology, right? It has to be seen as an investment class of its own that people are willing to buy and hold. Or am I seeing that wrong?
So it is hard to say. Like I said, what led me to crypto in general was the promise of the technology itself. And then what led me to investing in Bitcoin was seeing the opportunity and getting money from it.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily too sure of what is going to be the end all be all for blockchain. What is going to be the established system that leads us to a more digitized world that has that decentralized effect. But the thing is, at the end of the day, like I said, power is money. Wherever the money flows into ends up creating the system, so if there's value being poured in, like even though Bitcoin might not be the most valuable cryptocurrency out there, but just the fact that you have all of this financial institution money pouring into it, it's going to have what they call that network effect, where it starts to get more people on board. And then from that, we can create infrastructure using all that capital inflow to actually like make the exchange itself more valuable. Just like how the internet is. Like you need initially the internet wasn't valuable because you didn't have the network of people on there. And it could be easily replicated. Just like a Facebook, for instance. There was MySpace. It functioned the exact same way, where it was connecting people. But at the end of the day, the one that won out was the network that had the most amount of people in it. And also on top of that, like the technology itself has to be quality. And we're already identifying that with Bitcoin as it being the elements that make up Bitcoin, especially since it dropped down to the 3,000 mark and it bounced back up. It is showing that it is a quality enough system that it's not going to completely collapse.
Yeah, as long as somebody wants to buy it, in my opinion. I see a problem with that, because with stocks, there's people, I know when I talk to new investors and they talk about stocks, right? And they're like, what if I lose all my money? And I'm like, all right, let's say you invest into an index fund, just for example. You got to understand all those companies have to go to zero for your investment to go to zero. So you're investing in a small portion of all these businesses, or when you buy a single stock, you're buying a portion of that business. That business has to literally go to zero for that thing for your equity in that to go to zero. Whereas Bitcoin's only worth right now what it can be used for and what somebody else is willing to pay you for. And I don't see that many use cases at the moment. And I do see some problems with like the fact that, for me, let's say average Joe investor, average Joe crypto buyer, I would have to pay Coinbase a massive fee in order to actually obtain that and then to spend it, there's a lot of friction. There's a whole lot of friction in that process. So I guess the point I'm trying to get at, and I'm not exactly sure.
Friction is in terms of like the fees that you have to pay for it to
well, friction in the fact that I don't think it's very easy to use. I think that's one of the biggest problems. I think it's slow. I think it's hard to use, and I think you pay a lot of fees. You have to actually, right, purchase crypto or change fiat into crypto. And then in order to spend it, you have to find somebody that's willing to take it. You have to figure out how to transact it. Sometimes there's fees in the whole transaction. And then that's just, the whole process has a lot of friction in it, versus where if you're like, look, I want to sell BOHO HOBO clothes, I can literally just run a credit card and it's like done. Like there's some value in the fact that current fiat is not decentralized, because it's made it a lot easier to transact. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't see how Bitcoin gets past that. I can see in the future, where you use the internet example, right? Originally, internet was extremely slow. It was extremely expensive. I can see blockchain evolving in the future to get to a point where it does make sense to have to buy and use crypto as your daily currency. But I don't think Bitcoin's that. I don't think that's it. Do you kind of agree with that, or am I missing the mark?
So it's hard to say. Like I said, it's still so early on. But
yeah.
The advent of Jack Dorsey endorsing it, and Square just pushing, and PayPal pushing a ton of money into it, and then them integrating it into their system, it is showing signs that maybe it's not Bitcoin per se, but it is showing how we're starting to see the mainstream integrating crypto into our regular daily use or daily understanding and functioning as a society, right? So, I mean, Cathie Wood, she's from ARK Invest, and I'm a supporter of her. She believes that Bitcoin will be considered the global reserve currency. Now, whatever that means, I don't know. But what she's basically saying is that, given the fact that Bitcoin right now in the network, or all of the cryptocurrencies that are out there, takes up around, I haven't looked, but I think it's around 60% or so. It was at 1.90 back in 2013, I think it was. But the fact that it's so large and it has so many supporters in it, and the fact that it hasn't, it has shown that it won't collapse, does signal that, it has some value to it. And I think the biggest value is that right now they're saying it's a storage of wealth, the value in it being decentralized and having all the perks of being a blockchain, but then also the trust involved with that. You look at any other crypto, it is sort of centralized in the fact that you know who the owner is or the creator of it. But with Bitcoin, it's Satoshi Nakamoto, whatever that anonymous name is. So that adds to the, decentralized effect as well. And then the fact that, again, all this money is being poured into it is establishing that network effect.
Cool. So why don't there's a couple questions that popped up. Jake Brown, Jokib says, what do you think the resting price of Bitcoin will be if it becomes a global currency? With the current volatility, it seems highly unlikely that it'll be used as it's supposed to. Do you want to kind of go at that first?
So I think it's good to put some context into this. I don't think it'll necessarily be the one that's on the daily exchange that we'll be using to buy coffee with. I think it'll be for the investor that wants to store their wealth. How you have these billionaires that buy pieces of artwork and they just leave it in the family name and they just hold the value in that. So that's what we're seeing right now. And I think it's important to just go by what we're seeing right now to establish a thesis around it. So let's say it just is a store of value. And then when you're in the Bitcoin network, then when you want to exchange and buy daily goods, then you'll just switch it to a Ripple, or if it's a actual use case, switch it over to Ethereum.
Yeah,
the
I
question?
think
Sorry.
I think what you just said is fascinating because I agree with that sort of train of thought. I think there's already better cryptos for different things like speed, just general. Oh, a lot of likes coming in. Appreciate that. People liked your answer. And I think I don't know what the resting price will be. It's hard to say. I don't think Bitcoin will become a global currency. That's what I have a hard time believing. I know I can already, like, back in the day when I was working with manufacturers overseas for apparel, I could have paid them in Bitcoin. They already accepted Bitcoin. But the whole process, like, by the time, you send a payment, you could have sent, more or less based on the volatility. Whereas if I send you $1, that dollar, at least for the time being, isn't inflating to the point where it's worth less 5 minutes later. And I think that makes it really hard. I don't know how you use an investment class as a currency.
So, okay. I think how it'll play out is we'll have this huge influx. So right now we're getting some hype, and I was just looking at Google Trends to see like how it's performing. Typically when I look at investments, I'll obviously look at the charts, but also refer to Google Trends and search whatever investment it is to see if it's okay. Is it the mainstream that's buying into the hype, or is it like sound investors that actually support the thesis? And if you have a huge upsurge of Google searches, then it typically indicates that it's riding on the hype of the mainstream. Yeah. So the trend that we're seeing right now in Google for Bitcoin isn't as high as it was back in 2017.
Really?
No, it's probably like, I think like a quarter to a sixth of what it was back in 2017.
Do you think that's because people didn't know what it was in 2017 and now people kind of know what it is, so they're not Googling it as much? They just think it's another round?
Yeah, that could be the case too. I didn't give that into consideration. But I guess with saying that, it kind of changes my thought. But my original thought was that, okay, maybe it's just financial institution money that's pouring into it right now. That's creating a new support line. So like it blasted past 20,000. That could be the support line that we have now. And then at least now we have like an established, okay, this could be the lowest of lows at the 20,000 mark. It's past the 30,000. But like in terms of like the next 10 to 15 years, how I think it'll play out is I think we'll have that huge upsurge. The network effect will still hold true. It'll get to a level, let's say like Raoul Paul or Michael Saylor, I think it's going to be like 500,000, and it'll level out there. So, but the reason why we have that first initial network effect is because everyone's getting on board to it. Like financial institutions are talking, but then once it gets established as the storage of value, it will start to be less volatile, but it'll stay at that level of whatever that price range is, whether it's 300,000, 500,000 to some, like Chamath thinks it's going to be around the 1 million mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then since it's a storage of value, I think the volatility will slow down at whatever that resistance level is. Because people just want to leave their money in. They're only going to pull it out when they want to like actually buy stuff, whether it's a house or a cup of coffee, whatever it may be.
Chase, to answer your question, Zeke Parzik in the chat, thoughts on Bitcoin in the next 5 years? I think we just kind of covered it. But I think just to go over it again, I think honestly we'll see it like a huge upswing. I think the hype is going to drive it up. And I think something that's not being considered is there's massive amounts of wealth being created in the stock market right now, like unbelievable amounts of wealth. That money needs somewhere to go. That money, you can't spend all that money on yachts and big houses and luxury, all that sort of stuff. That money needs somewhere to be parked. That's kind of what I think you're saying is, so a lot of that money that's being created is going into alternative investments, one of those being Bitcoin. That's kind of my thesis on what's going on, and I think that's in line with yours, that institutional money is pouring in. But
so two parts to that. I think
yeah,
people are afraid that there will be a financial collapse, that being one. And the second one is there is more wealth being created. Like, for instance, we're seeing Tesla in the argument or the debate around, okay, they just raised billions of dollars because they sold their shares. Where are they going to put it? And people are saying, oh, maybe Bitcoin will be the best option.
well, I feel like Tesla as a company has so many different places they can invest money, like just within their business, that I don't see a company like Tesla right now. Tesla's a whole different topic that we could spend so much time on, but I really don't see Tesla investing billions of dollars into crypto as a company when they're trying to build gigafactories, when they're trying to build out lines. I see them. I think honestly, the only reason they sold stock was because they know their stock's overpriced, and they were like, "Look, we're gonna take capital out while we can." And I know that's another thing you and I disagree on, but I think they sold stock because they were like, "Look, it's high. Who knows if it's gonna stay here? Who knows if it's gonna crash? But we have stock that we can sell. Let's just issue more stock and take that money and run with it and use it to fund new projects, innovation, and such going forward."
Yeah, I mean, they're a growth company, so yeah, it would make sense to invest into innovation and technology. But I think I was just watching Galileo Russell, Hyperchange. I think that's the name, Galileo. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but he was just saying how they actually are running into the problem where they have all this money and they don't know how to spend it, so they just need a place to store it because it's burning up in cash right now. Not to be like over dramatic, but like it is like inflating, So I think it's a short-term play if they were to put it into Bitcoin.
Interesting. That's interesting. So realistically, something like that happens. Where do you see the price of Bitcoin going in this run up right now? In your opinion, where do you think it's going to end up before it sort of flattens out or comes back down in the 2021-2020 run up? And what happens, do you think, if someone like Tesla does invest their spare billions into crypto? Where do you see the price of it going?
So if you look at the gold market cap, it's 10 trillion.
Okay.
If you consider just that one factor alone, that the network of Bitcoin is going to start taking investors away from gold and putting it into Bitcoin, because people see that Bitcoin as a store of value is better than gold, then you're looking at, Kathy Wood was saying around 2 million or so of that market cap at a conservative number. So the market cap right now is 500 billion or so with Bitcoin. So we're looking at like a 4x or so. Wait. Yeah, that would be a 4x growth. Okay.
To 10 trillion?
That puts us at like 30,000, 60, 90, like 120,000 by the end of like maybe 2025. Okay. And then there's still so much huge upside. The thing with Bitcoin is there's like no cap, like it's deflationary. There's only a limited amount of Bitcoin. So it's 21 million, which is programmed into it. But also you have to consider that people die, people lose their wallets, like coins are lost. So maybe we're looking at more like in the 17 to 18 million range of available coins. And it's so early on that like, that's what you're betting on with Bitcoin. Not the fact that it's like this all hailing godly creation or anything, but the fact that we're so early on in the whole, like any investment you do, you weigh out risk and reward. So given that you get into an investment early on, there's huge upside to it. And especially with Bitcoin, there's so much potential to it of what it could be versus, yeah, you could lose it all, whatever. But like, not whatever, but like
I know
what you're weighing in on is like the growth potential of that. And the fact that it's a deflationary asset that also you're investing into for the next 15 to 20 years. You don't know what's going to happen. And do you really want to like miss out on that opportunity? And that just like establishes the reason why I'm investing into it, is because I just see, I would rather put my money into it. I just don't want to miss out on this opportunity. Basically,
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Down to.
I have 5% of my net worth in crypto, and that's spread out across Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. And the only reason I did that was because of your and mine discussions. I was planning on fully staying away from it. But you had convinced me to the point where I was like, all right, like there's enough, just like you said, upside versus the risk. And remembering what happened in 2017 when stuff just gets crazy. And like looking at the numbers when you were talking about it, like what if it just returns to where it was in 2017? There's already massive upside, you know, and now it's blown past that. As an investment, I put 5% in, knowing like, all right, I was comfortable if this goes to zero, I won't, you know, lose my mind. You know, obviously that'll hurt, but I won't absolutely lose my mind. And I think I sort of looked at it similarly to you, where I was like, there's upside, so how much am I willing to risk? And for me, I'm pretty risk adverse. As far as investment goes, I tend to stray away from risk, and that's why I invest in dividends. And with crypto, I was like, there's so much upside potentially just because of hype and because of people dumping money into it that I'm willing to invest in.
So I think where we start to lose people is when we start to hype up Bitcoin as being this godly creation of a use case. Like it's not a Tesla. It's not like it's going to change the world, but it does give you a hedge against financial collapse, which would be fucking amazing. Well, not financial collapse, but like the fact that we have a safe haven for it. But as far as like use case goes with Bitcoin, I don't see it as being like, it doesn't seem like it sort of seems like people who are super bullish get like wrapped up into the belief structure and like get a little bit disillusioned. But if we approach Bitcoin as more of this pragmatic approach where it's like, okay, well, there is potential that there's going to be financial collapse or the dollar will implode. What is the percentage chance that you think that will happen? And if it's 5%, then put 5% of your wealth into Bitcoin. Because like if it does happen, then which it could, we look at any fiat money in history, they've all imploded. So it's like, it's a matter of like when the dollar will implode rather than will it. So if you think it will implode within your lifetime, it's like, sure, it's probably a good investment.
So if the dollar imploded, like if we saw hyperinflation, if we saw the dollar lose an incredible amount of value in the world market, do you think crypto would be where people went?
Where else would we go?
To other currencies? Other fiat?
I think if the dollar implodes, it's going to create this domino effect where a lot of other currencies are also going to implode because of how globally connected we are with our supply chain network and how a lot of people are indebted, or we are indebted to a lot of other countries.
Because I can see,
like we're in debt, and I don't really know. I'm not an expert in like why we're in debt, but I would assume it's because we're like taking money from China and we're telling them, oh, we're gonna pay you back and that kind of thing. But if the dollar implodes, we'll never pay back China. So like, what happens then?
Well, I feel like, see, this is where I struggle as more of a traditionalist in my investment approach, because I see, for me, let's talk about like when the stimulus was starting to come out and the Fed announced, look, we're going to do an inflationary plan. Like we're going to inflate the dollar. and damage its value as a way to try to spur spending and investment, right? That was their plan. When I saw that and when that started to happen, I put my money into real estate and I put my money into equities instantly. I mean, I still have an emergency fund in cash, but I never was like Bitcoin because I still struggle with the underlying actual value of Bitcoin. I think it's, you know what I mean? So I feel like if the dollar was to lose value, there's still value in equity or in assets like real estate and stocks and in
gold.
companies and in gold. I think gold is another one of those things where it's like, I don't understand it. I can't even speak on gold, but in my personal uninformed opinion, it seems like a very similar thing to Bitcoin, again, where it's only worth what somebody else is willing to pay for it.
Right. It's a hard asset. It's like a commodity of some sort where it's like,
yeah.
Well, the difference with Bitcoin is it's deflationary. So
but
it's a hard
so are
asset,
assets,
but it's also increasing in value because there's that limited supply. Whereas with the argument with gold, or what they say about gold is that there's potential that we could continue mining it. There's like potential, like, oh, what if we drill into the ocean and we find like a big supply of it? Then it's going to change the price. Yada yada.
But I think real estate and stocks do the same exact thing. There's maybe not as much with stocks, but with real estate, there's a set amount of real estate, right? Like when you study economics, you learn about like beachfront properties, where it's like, look, beachfront properties are expensive because there are so little of them. It's just supply and demand, right? Same with home prices. When you have a house, right, on a plot of land, it has inherent value. The dollar value changes based on the value of an actual dollar, right? And the value of a home might increase as well. But when the value of a dollar decreases, the price of a home goes up because you still have the same asset, you still have the same home. Right. So I feel like something like real estate or owning a piece of a company is a better hedge against inflation than crypto. And I've struggled to get around that.
Well, the thing is, you're still investing into it.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you're not 100% sold on it, you still don't want to miss out on that opportunity.
100%.
So again, like maybe I wouldn't say I'm a Bitcoin bull by any means.
Okay.
I just when I text you, I just get excited about it, and maybe that comes off as like me being like super bullish.
So what are you currently putting your money into crypto, or are you putting, if you feel comfortable saying it, like,
yeah, I'm fine.
Are you currently investing in crypto? Are you bullish currently about the price, or are you thinking you're putting your money into other places?
I just see a lot of promise in it, especially with the whole network effect thing. I look at other investments that are out there, and nothing else besides like penny stocks that are going to give you that potential return. Whereas like at least with Bitcoin, you can prepare a little bit more for it. It's more of a long-term investment, but it still gives you those huge like 10, 20x returns that it would be really hard to get if you're investing into like stocks or real estate. Like you would just be getting, unless you're investing into like a Tesla or like these crazy growth tech innovation companies. So like basically how my whole like process was I had a bunch of cash that was saved up. I needed some place to put it. I was saving up to invest in Tesla, but then we had that huge upsurge and I was like, oh shit, I missed out. It's overvalued. I don't feel comfortable investing in it right now. And then it was just like looking at other options out there, and I was like, okay, well, I want to retire early. I'm willing to take the risk. What other options are there that'll give me the 10 to 20x returns? And I stumbled on Bitcoin again, and I was like, okay, let's do this. So I invested, when was it? Probably like 4 months ago, when it was around like the 14K mark.
Crushing it. You're crushing it. You did. I mean,
Yeah,
you're right.
it's been a wild ride. Definitely.
You were right.
I wasn't right. I was not right. I just needed a place to put my money.
And where do you think it ends on this run? Where, if you were to guess?
I think it'll keep going. I don't see why not.
See, when it started to run up, I said in my inner circle, 35K and back down. Now it's at like 33, 34K, and it looks like it's just going to blast right through. So I don't know. I have no idea, and obviously no one knows. But I think like what you were talking about, if institutional money goes into it, I think you'll see 50K, 75K, 100K.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of it's psychological. Like I said, a lot of the thing that's driving the price right now is the network effect, which is the same effect that we had with the iPhone. Granted, like it's kind of like comparing apples to oranges, because the iPhone is like an actual physical thing that has intrinsic value to it. But like more on the psychological effect that like, oh, my friend has it, now I need it. And like this celebrity has it, or, oh, this big financial institution is buying into it. So it like kind of further, it's a confirmation bias.
Okay. In your opinion, is there a cryptocurrency that you see actually achieving what people talk about being a daily use case, currency that's out right now that you believe in?
I think Ethereum has a lot of potential. When I like originally was on that train of thought back in 2017, I was thinking of like, okay, what kind of problems are there in the world? And then I would go on this like rabbit hole kind of thought process where I'm like, okay, how can I use Bitcoin to my advantage to actually create like a platform that could benefit humanity? And a lot of it has to do with that decentralization of data. Because like you look at some of the, in most of the apps that are out there, they're backed by Ethereum. Like the actual like back end of the software is powered by Ethereum. And a lot of them don't, the app itself don't function necessarily different like on the front end as any apps that we have now, but the intrinsic value of it is the fact that it's decentralized and there is no centralized location. So it provides us as individuals this freedom. And especially if we're looking at like artificial intelligence and all these algorithms, like kind of having this mind control effect on a society. Like we don't want something as powerful as artificial intelligence to control our data. We want ownership over that. And we also want to monetize that. So like one thing that really, really like economically kind of fascinates me is if you own your own data, then you can, like I said, monetize that. So we're looking at a possible world where you could be on Instagram, or you could have like whatever the Google is of, but you could have Google searches. You can surf the web, and you can keep track of the data that you're consuming, whether it's through media or things of that nature. And then the more media that you're consuming, you can find more and more ways to get money from that. So you're basically looking at a world where just by using a platform, you could be getting money from it.
So in the blockchain is what allows that?
Yeah, because it gives everyone data ownership.
Okay. That's fascinating stuff. I mean, that when you say that and you talk about how Ethereum is allowing people to build apps that might allow that, then I say, okay, Ethereum might make sense as an investment class. You know what I mean? That to me as more of a traditionalist, that makes a lot more sense. And that's something that I'm like, all right, use case wise, and if there's going to be a set amount of a coin in the world, right, there has to be a use case for that coin for the value to go up. Otherwise, it's just worth what somebody else is going to pay you, right? And Ethereum having those uses makes it, in my mind, make a lot more sense as an investment class than something like Bitcoin. However, Bitcoin obviously clearly paved the way and like introduced this technology, so it has its place. And I think you are onto something when you talk about it being a store of value.
Yeah, I think that's the main thesis. Wait, I gotta plug in.
You're good.
Did I lose you?
You get a 20.
I'm
Yeah,
good?
did you get a 20% warning?
Yeah.
Did you get a 20%
Did it
warning?
pop up?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
you just went black
1
for a
second.
second. What's going on, chat? We got a couple people in here. Cam, I saw you in here. Always chasing
hell yeah.
better. That's such a sick username. What's going on? Lexi, if you're still here, I love you. How are you?
Okay, cool. Yeah, as far as use case goes, blockchain I think is beneficial. It provides a lot of promise for us. What were we talking about? Oh, Ethereum. Why I'm not investing into that is because I don't see it's still too early on for me to know what exactly is going to go on with that.
Okay.
But as far as like me understanding like the psychological network effects kind of thing and having all that cash and not knowing what to do with it, I was like, oh shit, like Bitcoin's it. Like I want to jump in on this opportunity. So a part of me kind of did predict that we were going to have this huge run up like we did.
Yeah. Yeah, I think 100%, because when you hit me up, it was significantly lower than it is today. I bought in around the 17,000 mark. Sold, unfortunately, and recently got back in. And I pretty much decided, like, look, I'm comfortable keeping 5% of my net worth in crypto, regardless of my problems with it, because if there's innovation to the point where it does start to solve a lot of the problems that it was created to solve, and it becomes something that's more used in actual life, I want to have some exposure in my portfolio to it. That was kind of my train of it really does not fit in with my investment philosophy of retiring early and creating cash flow, because I don't think, if I think about it, other than my home, I don't have any investment other than crypto that doesn't actually generate cash flow. I just believe that the upside there could be significant enough to outweigh the fact that I'm not using that capital to make cash flow at the time being. I just don't know when I sell. And that's always been my hardest part as a growth investor, when I was a growth investor. Like when in your mind, do you still have money, or do you still have any cryptocurrency currently?
I just have Bitcoin.
So when in your mind...
Well, I have other investments, but as far as crypto goes, I only have Bitcoin.
That's what I meant. Yeah. So at what point, at what number are you like, all right, I'm good, I'm selling? Are you selling at $1 million? Are you selling at $100,000? What are you selling at as far as the price of Bitcoin?
Like I said, I want 10x. So I'll just
it.
wait until it reaches that threshold.
And 10x for you
So
is
what
like
would that
what?
be like?
For you, that's
150K
or 130K?
Sure. Yeah. And I'll probably, at that point, I'll still hold on to it. Because if it's established at that level, then I'm sure it'll keep going up. And I'll continue to have that network effect. But as far as like long-term use, and you said Cam was on earlier, like him and I have been talking about this, but like if it doesn't hold an intrinsic value for society at that point, which fucking would blow my mind because all that money's into it, and if all these billionaires don't figure out a way to like actually make it useful, then they're fucking up. But if it doesn't be a intrinsically valuable thing where it's like income producing in some way, then it's going to die out eventually, or it'll just like settle out on whatever the initial like buyers were like it'll establish at a price where the initial buyers that were like predicting it'll be a store of value will hold that value, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like how gold is, right? Like me personally, I don't see huge upside in gold. I think whatever prices that's now is just established as that, and I think the same thing will be the case with Bitcoin. It'll just hold at whatever that threshold is at that point.
Cool. I love it. Nick DeMaria says, any thoughts on the future of Dogecoin? Dogecoin. I forget which one it is. The movement in the past couple of days has been pretty dramatic.
I'm not a financial advisor. I can't educate or advise anyone on their financial decisions. It's only for entertainment purposes only. Do as you will.
That's how I start my yeah. Honestly, dude, with Dogecoin, I think it was started as a meme. It's still a meme, but like Bitcoin, it has the potential to like it has the potential to be much bigger than it is currently, just due to like pure hype. Do I think Dogecoin will be the crypto that we daily transact? No, I don't think so. Kyle, you can tell me if you disagree with that, but the future of Dogecoin, I think with everything else in the market, we'll see a massive run up like we have been. It might run up some more, and then it'll come back down, and it'll do that 100 times, over the next 100 years probably.
Besides Elon Musk tweeting about it, I have no idea what the fuck that is.
Yeah, it's just a meme coin, but Nick, I think it is interesting because it just shows like something that was a complete joke literally went from, all right, so I'm looking at 1 week. 1 week ago, it was 0.0046 of a dollar, and it ran all the way up to 1.2 cents. So, you can do the math. I mean, like anyone that actually had any meaningful amount of money in it, just like overnight, just multiplied their money, which is incredible. And if somebody knew that this was coming, if somebody could analyze the charts and know that was coming, that's incredible. But I think it's a meme, and in my opinion, that probably won't be the coin that we daily transact, and I don't think it'll really be a actual store value. But
yeah,
anyway,
my question to you, Rob.
Yeah,
we've had this debate before of like value versus growth. Do you want to get into that conversation?
Yeah, I'm down.
So as far as like you coming from the perspective of intrinsic value and trying to invest in stuff that are income producing and that will be valuable for society, what's your opinion on a lot of these growth stocks in the tech industry right now, and how do you think it'll play out in terms of like them potentially in the future being the next companies that are providing value to our society to be income producing?
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, just to respond to the chat, Nick, no problem, brother. I appreciate you being here. Hope to connect soon. But just to answer your question, Kyle, it's fascinating stuff, and sometimes I do get FOMO because I've boxed myself into this investment class of dividends and dividend paying stocks where I don't invest in anything else. And sometimes I get FOMO because I look at these companies and I think, wow, there's some companies that have been around 50 years and have never paid a dividend to their shareholders. At the end of the day, my investment thesis is I invest in companies I believe in companies that I like, and in companies that I believe will be around for generations. So when you take that and you look at a company like Tesla, right? Maybe let's look at Tesla. I think that Tesla will be around forever, but I'm an investor in these companies. I may be a consumer of Tesla in the future, right? And I would love to own a Tesla. But as an investor, I believe a company needs to reward its shareholders. It needs to pay its shareholders. There needs to be reason for shareholders to own stock, to hold stock. And when you need to buy low and sell high in order to make money owning a company. You take on all the risk with very little reward in a stock market like that. So I don't see the benefit. I don't see the actual, it's just a lot of risk for not a lot of return, in my opinion. I want stocks that reward their shareholders. When I think of companies like Uber, and when I think of companies like Tesla, these companies that could revolutionize the world as we know it, right? Transportation as we know it. Elon Musk, he could take us to Mars, right? I will be a consumer of these companies. I will be. I hope to own a Tesla one day, and I'll be in an Uber very soon once it's safe to be in an Uber again. That's not. I love those companies, and I will be consumers of their products. But for me to invest in these companies, I need more than that. I need them to reward the shareholders, and I need to have some sort of a guaranteed return or guaranteed return, as long as the dividend's not cut. Because when I own a company for 50 years, I don't want to have to sell it at a higher number. And I don't want the company, like, let's say Tesla, for example, let's say it goes 40 years, crushes it, sky high forever, but never pays a dividend. I would never sell. I would continue. If it was in my portfolio, right, I would never sell. I would just ride it, planning on giving it to my kids. Year 41, if it goes to zero, I made nothing. I lost all my money. But every company that I invest in right now, going up, right? I'm making money along the way. And my amount that I'm making along the way is increasing every year with dividend increases. So for me, to invest in a company like Tesla, it's just not, there's the reward is not there. The product and the company, I believe in enough to be a consumer. But I won't be investing in those companies if they don't pay a dividend. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. To give you context of where I'm coming from, I currently don't own Tesla stock right now, because like I said, it had a huge run up and I kind of missed out on the potential return on that. But I do support Tesla and what they're doing, and I do think they're going to revolutionize the world. Do you care if I throw some counters into your thesis?
Please do. Yeah, absolutely. I'm here. Yeah, let's go.
All right, cool. So do you consider that maybe if Tesla is established as a valuable company, which it already kind of is, but more established as a company in the future, that'll end up giving dividends to their shareholders once it reaches the point of what their mission is, like sustainability?
Yeah, 100%. I think Tesla, I think SpaceX, if it ever goes public, all of his companies could potentially pay dividends, and in which case I will look at them as investments. But right now,
you want to wait then. You want to wait. So that's the difference there.
I will take a look at any company that pays a dividend. Any company that doesn't pay a dividend, I don't even waste my time. I don't even look at them. So if Uber, if Tesla, if what are some other companies that just recently went public? Like DoorDash. Did DoorDash just Airbnb is going public or just went public, right? All these companies, if they start to pay a dividend in the future, I'll analyze them at that point and see, is this a good investment now? Because if it is...
So you're just more conservative in your approach. Like 100%. You want more stability of income producing assets.
100%. I will only buy an asset. I honestly, and this is a controversial statement, but I don't think a stock that doesn't pay you is an asset. I don't think it's an asset. I think it's a liability. I really think, because you have a lot of risk with that, right? And until you actually sell it, you haven't made money. And until you sell it, you haven't lost money. It's just something that floats, right? And a lot of these valuations are just pixie dust, right? They're just whatever, they just go on news. For me, I don't want analysis. I don't want stock price to be the determinant of whether or not I build wealth. I need a company. I need something to actually pay me. And right now, I'm not taking that cash. I'm reinvesting it because I believe these companies are going to continue to pay dividends. But
okay, so there's two more parts to my counter. So are you also considering the idea that if a lot of these big technology growth companies are successful in the long run, that it will end up disrupting a lot of the companies in the S&P or on the market right now that are those dividend value investments?
I don't think there's a single stock in my portfolio, which is, granted, not many stocks right now because I sold a massive chunk of my portfolio to buy my house, or mine and Alexi's house. So granted, there's not many, but even pre buying a home, there is not a single stock in my portfolio that I believe is going to be disrupted because I invest on a 100-year timeline. So when you invest on a 100-year timeline and when you invest only for dividends, it automatically like hones in the actual assets that you have the option to buy, or that I'll allow myself to buy or invest in. So yes, I think there are, like, I own no automobile companies at all in my portfolio, and I think Ford,
Right.
or
I haven't
they're going to
get disrupted.
Yes, 100%. So I don't even think like Ford, I don't know what it currently pays, but I think it used to pay like an 8.7% dividend. Massive. But I think Ford's going to get crushed by Tesla. I don't see myself ever owning a brand new Ford. I see myself owning a brand new Tesla in the future, right? So like based on that and based on the disruption, I'll never own Ford in my portfolio, or at least with what I see now. Does that make sense? So I think you're dead on. I think we think the same way about that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. At the end of the day, it's whatever's going to provide value. So if you can find companies that are still maintaining that value for the next 100 years, then you're good. But
yeah,
I do think
companies that'll last.
Yeah, companies that'll last. It's just for me, it's hard to see what companies will. Also, it's hard to see what companies will have that future innovation too. Like there's always that risk, and it is a gamble of luck to a certain extent. But that's the game. That's the game we're playing.
Yeah, I would rather bet on a company that's done it successfully and is still doing it successfully, more so than a company that's just starting out. Most of the time.
And then to counter that is like, we already see that Tesla is an established growth company. So like I can understand like back in the .com bubble, like it's very speculative to invest in a high growth tech company during that era. But now there are already tech companies out there that are income producing, and we know that they're going to be around for the next 10, 20 years.
But they're
like,
not.
I can't
They're not
imagine
distributing.
Tesla's just going to go bankrupt, you know? So
but
it's
they
like
might,
you're
and
kind
they're
of
not
playing with that too.
Yeah, they might though, and they're not distributing any wealth along the way to shareholders. So that's not a risk I'm likely to take. Like if you think about, like, I think it was Chrysler in 08, 09. Like Chrysler, an established American car brand, right? Manufactured here in the States, like had to be saved by the United States. It had to be bought by fiat because of like the economic crisis here in the States. And that's, a massive company. Tesla right now, its actual market cap is like more than every car manufacturer combined. It's unreal. So as an investment, I don't think it makes sense now. I don't think it makes sense in the future if they're not gonna pay at any price. At any price, I don't think it's a good investment if they're not gonna return any value to their shareholders other than like price increase in a share. Because right now all you're seeing is it's a meme. It's just riding on complete hype. It's not based on like, dude, I watch a lot of those Tesla analysis videos where people are like, Tesla to 1,000, Tesla to $2,000, and people talk about it. And it's like, what you're talking about, you're just thinking about a share price. You're not actually thinking about what that means for a market cap, what that actually means for like a PE, all that sort of stuff. I think it's just short term. I mean, it's tough.
So I think I'm just trying to find the differences in our thesis. But I think with my background, I'm coming from a place of like wanting to understand how the world works and understand what problems the world is facing and what would be the best solutions to those problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I always come back to technology. Technology is what's moving humanity forward. It's what's happened in history. All the revolutions that have taken place was because of technology. So when I'm coming from that background, I think I don't think in the terms of like, oh, what's going to give money back to the shareholders. Like when I'm investing for the future of like, I'm just thinking maybe more macro scale in
Mm-hmm.
that sense. Like on what would actually help humanity in the future. And I try to find those companies, and that's what I'm investing into.
The thing I'll say to that, though, is just because it helps humanity doesn't make it a good business and doesn't make it a good investment. That's the problem.
In terms of finances, right?
Yeah, in terms of finances. Like I said, I'll be a Tesla consumer in the future because I think electric vehicles are something that needs to happen and something that like genuinely helps the world. But will I be a shareholder? No, we're talking about two different things. Where I park my money as an investment and where I spend my money are two different discussions. I don't mix the two at all. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
I would spend my money on something that I think makes the world better. Maybe it makes my carbon footprint less. Maybe it makes me more efficient, right? All that sort of stuff. But that doesn't make it a good business to invest in.
I'm trying to understand that. I think what you're saying is a huge idea. And that's the division between growth and value investors. And I'm just trying to understand like where you're coming from a little bit better with that.
So let's take Tesla, just because it's easy. Tesla makes an incredible product, right? Their product is great. I will buy a Tesla one day, right? It's serving a purpose. It's making the world a cleaner place, right? All those sorts of things. So I will spend money on a Tesla in the future. That does not make it a good business. What makes it a good business is good fundamentals, good leadership, good cash flow, right? Net positive income, all that sort of stuff, right? Good, like if Tesla is using that money for good causes, right? Like Apple invests a ton of money into like green innovation and that sort of stuff. Tesla does the same thing.
So that's the difference, though. That's the difference, though. It's not just a proof of concept of like one car that they built that will show that it's going to be green energy, but it's an actual business model that's scalable, that is income producing, has great leadership, understands finance. Like fundamentally, they're very fucking good, as well as being idealistic as well.
But you still even know that it's not a good investment right now. There still becomes a point where a company can do all of that and still not be a good investment.
Because of what the price is right now.
Yeah, but again, you're right. Let me say that you are right. I took it a different way, but you are right. I'm saying is like, I, as an investor, think differently than I do as a consumer. I think you mix the two. You're like, what do I think will actually help the world? What do I enjoy as like a product? What do I, that sort of stuff. Like, let me invest in those companies. But in all seriousness, you investing into those companies and you putting your money into those shares does not help the company, right? You're buying those shares from another shareholder that's just selling them. You're much better off helping a business to buy their product, right? To consume their product. If you believe in it, you should donate money to them. You shouldn't become a shareholder. I'm not going to risk any of my money in a company that I don't think is a good investment at all.
So you're think of from the perspective of Musk, like what would be a better allocation of resources. They don't need the money from shareholders right now. What they do need is that income from you buying their vehicles.
Yes. Yeah,
That's what
100%. Someone like Joe Schmo investor buying 2 shares of Tesla right now does nothing for Tesla at all. By the way, also, Joe venture capitalist buying 10,000 shares of Tesla does nothing for Tesla. It does literally nothing. You just bought it from somebody else. What actually helps Tesla as a company is buying their consumable product, which is a vehicle, right? Or a power bank or a solar panel, like all the things that they offer. So for me as an investor, that's why I don't invest into these companies. Like these are like Uber, Tesla, Airbnb, all things I use, all products I love, but I won't own their shares because they don't do anything for their investors. They don't return capital, and I don't necessarily believe they're good investments.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's kind of the line that I draw. Fun talking about it though.
Good things to consider. Yeah.
Yeah.
To add to this, like coming from the background of just understanding technological innovation.
Yeah.
I think that's partially what brings in my bias to investing in growth companies or in tech companies, because if you are in the camp of believing that technology is moving towards this place where there's going to have exponential advancement, then that alone is like something to raise your eyebrows about, to be like, maybe there is something there. And that's where I'm at. So just to like highlight the differences in Thesis.
No, listen, dude, in 50 years, that'll be the telltale. Like, you might be a freaking billionaire in 50 years, and you'll be doing all your humanitarian stuff, and it'll be like, you were clearly correct, and I was clearly wrong, right? So we might get to that point, and I'm obviously biased my way, you're obviously biased your way. But when I think about, like, technology, like you're saying, like, look, innovation, like technology, all this sort of stuff is, like, been the drivers of the biggest changes moving forward. I'd say you are correct, but like, does that make MySpace a good investment? Like, if you invested in MySpace when it started and you still own shares, would that be a good investment? No, nobody uses the platform, but clearly the technology mattered. Clearly that paved the ways for social networks moving forward. For me, I'm not willing to take the risk of having to invest into a MySpace to eventually find a Facebook. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
As an investor, but I will be a user of MySpace. I'll be a user of Facebook. I'll be a user of Reddit, all these different platforms. But
then it's enticing because it's like, oh, there's like 20x growth in these companies.
Yeah.
Especially if you're looking at Tesla, when you know that it's going to be an established company, potentially there's like a high percentage of that at this point.
Yeah. I think it's more likely than not.
It's risk. I think it's just risk assessment at that point. How much you're willing to risk to get those returns.
100%.
And I just don't. Either way, we're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the thing.
No. I might actually be the one that ends up losing it all.
No, dude. I think it's the other way around. I think more traditional modes of investing, well, they seem safer from the outside, all it takes is like 1 or 2 big wins for you. Like if you were like a 2010 investor in Bitcoin, right? Like you'd be set. You would have won the game already. It's that easy, right?
Crazy.
From that point of view, it could have just been $1,000 and you won. You're done. All that. It's over. Whereas my strategy is much more long-term, much more like slow. But again, you are going to have a lot more 1,000 to 100s than I will, but you'll have a much more 1,000 to 1,000,000s than I will. So it's just,
but why not both? Why not both?
Because I think it's really hard to do both. I think it's almost impossible.
I guess if you're in the camp of like diversifying your portfolio yourself, but like for me, for instance, I have my 401k and I'm putting in regular S&P kind of stocks. I have my like growth. Granted, I'm still investing in growth companies with a growth portfolio, but that's managed by
No,
my,
you're right. You're
my
right.
broker.
100%. I have my 401k.
And then you just pick the individual stocks.
Yeah. Yeah. My goal is to get to a point where my 401k is cream on the crop, right? Get to the point where my crypto is cream on the crop, where I can live my life based on my investments, and my growth investments are just like fun. It's just gambling, because that's, in my mind, that's what it is.
Yeah, makes sense.
So it's just a different way of thinking, but I don't necessarily think either of us are wrong. And I think if anyone's investing, I think if you're investing money into like if you put money in Tesla right now, I think there's a really small chance it goes to zero, right? Like, I think it's nearly impossible at this point. Like you were saying, I think they've established themselves, but could it be cut in half? Yeah, I think that's pretty likely. Could it double? Yeah, I think that's probably could happen. I don't know. I don't want to play that game. I think that's just like the difference.
Yeah, that's fair.
When you look at a company as an investment, you're looking at like, all right, what do they do? Like, how do they, like, you're looking at like, what do you look at any of the finances or stuff, or do you believe more just in the mission and that sort of stuff when you invest into something?
I look at stream of income, revenue streams for the future, market cap.
So
a
like
lot of
growth.
times with growth companies, if I'm looking at individual stocks, the PE ratios and the finance like calculations, they don't really like play into any effect. It's hard to.
Yeah.
You don't really go by that when you're looking at growth companies. So like for me, if I'm value investing, it would just be in a diversified portfolio. But then if you're looking at growth individual stocks, then you're looking at, you are looking at the mission. Like, what are they trying to do? What are they innovating towards? Watching YouTube videos about it, looking at the finances yourself on their balance sheets.
I did something before we started just to see, because I harp on Tesla for having such a high PE, and I harp on people for investing in Tesla at this price to earnings. So I've heard a lot of people say like, oh, but think about Apple. Like, Apple used to be really expensive, and now it's like a multi-trillion-dollar business. And I went back and I looked. Apple's highest PE ever was 40. Tesla's PE right now is like 1,300. It's just like, it blows my mind as like that there are legitimate people in the space. And I'm not saying you said it, because you even clearly said like you said it's not a good investment at this number, but like it blows my mind that people look at that and like they're like, yeah, as a growth company it's still got room to grow. Like, no, it's like it's, I don't know, it just blows my mind.
Okay, so I say it's a bad investment now because I think that it will drop a little bit lower, maybe to the $400 or $500 range. So I just think it's overvalued to what it could be at. So I'm gonna wait to see if it does start dropping. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Given that, saying that, I do think that in terms of the next 5 to 10 years, there will be potential for 5x growth. You just consider all the streams of revenue that they will have in the future, or not will, because we're never 100% sure, but that they do say that they're working towards having. And then you just calculate, okay, how much money is in flow? What would be their potential market cap? So yeah, like Tesla's at 500 billion market cap, right? I haven't looked in.
It's around there.
But yeah, just for ease of like knowledge, let's say it's that. And if you consider that they could be a $2 trillion company in the next 10 years, then there you go. You have 4x your money.
They are $668 billion market cap right now.
Okay, fair. So just the thing with growth companies is you just look at, okay, what are you investing in and what is the time horizon looking like in the next whatever that time frame is. And then you just buy and hold. And like I'm in the sense of like, I think long-term investing is the best way. So you just put your money in, you hold it, and you pull it out when it's at the time frame, right? So even though Tesla, in my opinion, is overvalued right now, the risk of maybe holding out and not investing into it, waiting for that dip to happen, and it never does, and then the potential reward for all of those streams of revenue in the next 10 years, like you just got to weigh those two things out.
Yeah, I agree, but when I look at like a company like Tesla, right, and we say, all right, it's at a $600 billion market cap, and you say, or let's, 2 trillion at 4x's, you're like, great, that looks awesome. The path to get to 2 trillion when you're already at a multiple of over 1,000 your earnings means you have to go 4,000 times your earnings. More than that, because right now it's 1,300 times, or let's see, where are we at? Yeah, it's 1,398 times earnings. So, in my opinion, this company doesn't get to a $2 trillion market cap. It doesn't get to a $2 trillion market cap in under 20 to 30 years. I think in 20 to 30 years, you can see it get to like a $2 trillion market cap, but it needs to continue to increase earnings to get to the point where it's sitting at like a 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 PE, right? Yeah. Where it's actually reasonable, like you're actually paying for some sort of a legitimate business. Yeah. And then if you took this company down to 100 PE, it'd be a $70 stock. You know what I mean? It would be a $60 billion market cap. So when you talk about like 2 trillion, like what actually needs to happen between then? I just honestly don't think it'll happen within a couple of decades. I think at the fastest, it's a 15-year process. At the fastest. That's my hot take.
Yeah, I guess where I'm coming from is, okay, let's say it is a 2 trillion in the next 10 years. I'd be more comfortable investing at like, let's say $100 billion market cap as opposed to 500. So I'm just waiting for that dip to happen. If it does, if not, then I missed out. But then I have the other gambles of like Bitcoin in my bag, for the potential for high return. So yeah, I do recognize the fact that it is a gamble to a certain extent. But I like gambling in this sense where it's like I just like doing all the research and understanding the concepts behind future innovation. And I think partially I'm biased because I just enjoy the research into this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Is there anything else you want to talk about while we're on live?
No, I think it was good.
Yeah, man, that was a fun discussion.
I think it was good in highlighting our different perspectives. Like me coming from a growth investing background, you with value, and then us being able to like come see eye to eye into like why we believe what we believe, and also to find similarities between the two things.
What's going on, Mark? What's going on, Mia? Yeah, I agree, man. This has been a lot of fun. Honestly, I got one last question for you before we sign off, if you got a minute.
Yeah, of course.
What do you think we see a market crash in the next 2 years?
So I think we're seeing a market shift. What they say, like the K-shaped recovery kind of thing, where a lot of money is getting reallocated to big technology. And this is just playing to my thesis of like, in the next 10 years, 20 years, I think we're going to have huge technological innovation. And I don't think people are ready for it. And unless you study this stuff, it's really hard to see that coming and why it is going to be so dramatic, or why it could be so dramatic. We're having convergence of like a lot of different tech innovation. So it's just giving a lot of promise to it. And in order for those things to actually be possible happening, a lot of resource, time, energy is going to have to be reallocated to that to happen. So if the market crashes, I think it'll be in the fact that things like the financial institution maybe collapsing, like banks collapsing, like kind of like this old world money kind of idea, that's going to crash, and we're going to see a new world emerging from it.
I love it. I love the take. I love documenting it, because if it does happen, it's fun to have.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I think I've shared my perspective with you, that I think the market's really overpriced at the moment. A lot of stocks are. I think there are some that aren't.
Yeah.
So I
it's
think
kind of like the .com bubble. Not that extreme, but the people are very hyped up and greedy right now on tech being the save all.
I don't think there will be a full-on market recession again in the next 2 to 5 years. I don't think we'll see it. I think what will happen is we will see inflation take a massive role in just increasing the income of these companies. The cost of their products going up, the price they charge for their products going up, and all of that sort of increasing their earnings enough to the point where their PEs begin to sort of settle around, normal prices, as far as like what's expected for each sector. So I don't think we'll see a recession as much as we're going to see a long-term sideways, maybe a little up sort of growth that ends up just kind of mellowing everything out and letting the market kind of catch up to itself.
One idea, I'm not like a super expert in all this stuff, but one idea I had was that with COVID happening, a lot of businesses were shut down. People's like payments were put on hold because of COVID, like rent and like student loan debt, that kind of thing. But then as we start opening up, or like right now, for instance, a lot of the payments that need to be processed that you have to pay, they're starting to be reactivated. And so now we're still having business shut down, and people are going to start to have to pay their loans and like rent and pay for rent and like any debts that they owe. So like what if we start seeing that a lot of our businesses going in default on their loans because they can't pay it back because they're not getting the income that they expected that they would have when we do start reopening, and then we'll start to have a potential like mass, well, we already have like the mass unemployment thing, but then like mass business closing down, all the loans that the banks did loan out, maybe they're not going to be able to get paid back, and then the Fed's going to have to bail them out, and then that's going to increase inflation as well. So with all of that kind of having a domino effect, that could be a potential catalyst for market crash. And then on top of that, like interest rates are super low right now. Like there's no incentivizing besides printing off money for economic activity. So like it's like a domino effect of banks crashing, loans not being paid back, the Fed having to bail us out by printing money and providing these stimulus checks, while on top of that, like the dollar inflating because there's no other way to spur on economic activity besides giving us stimulus checks because the interest rates are so low.
Yeah, I think that's likely. I think it's sad that it's likely. I think, like you said, like unfortunately the small business discussion and the stock market discussion are separate, I think, which is sad because you're seeing the stock market is on a tear and small businesses are getting crushed. I think that's a whole different discussion, but it's sad and it's disappointing to see. But I think what you said is likely. And I will say not to toot my own horn, but if the stock market does crash, that's a great thing for dividend investors. That's a bad thing for growth investors. So it's just another reason why I love dividend investing, is because even if I'm wrong, I'm going to win.
Yep.
Because I'll be able to buy these companies at significantly lower prices like I did in April.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
You know, so I don't know. I love it. Anything you want to end on? Anything you want to end the call on?
No, I just hope everyone's staying happy, healthy, like this difficult time. So, yeah, be safe.
Absolutely.
I'm not too sure about the vaccine. I'll throw that out there. I'll probably end up having to get it because I work in healthcare, but it's very early on, so we'll see how that works out. But yeah, I just hope everyone the best, really.
Absolutely, me too. I'll be posting my picture when I get the vaccine proudly. I will have it in my arm, and if they put a chip in me, so be it. I'm ready to get back to my life. So
yeah, definitely.
It'll be fun to see though. Anyway, brother, thank you for hopping on the call and sitting and doing this. We've been going for an hour and a half.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So this was a lot of fun. Thank you to everybody that joined. I know there's not that many people in here now, but I think, man, I'm scrolling through. We had like 50 people in and out throughout the call, which is pretty incredible.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm hoping this is something I can do more often and kind of just have these conversations over Instagram Live and record them and go off that, because kind of having the questions live was kind of fun. I thought it's interesting.
Were there any questions that we haven't answered?
I don't think so. I think we hit them all. Let me go back and check. But yeah, we hit Nick's. Cam said the boys and sent some hearts in there. Chase and then Jake.
Shout out to Cam.
We hit them all. So cool, brother. Thank you for hopping on the call.
Hell yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course. Until next time. Peace.
Over and out.